Good afternoon. This is Jim Wright with the Longhorn Historical Society, and for Georgia on Location, I am here at Camp Toccoa at Currahee in Toccoa, Georgia. Today we're going to be talking about the economic impact of military bases throughout the state with our emphasis at Camp Toccoa. So sit back and enjoy as we learn about military bases. Georgia is no stranger to military bases. During World War I, Georgia had the most training camps of any other state in the country. This continues into World War II. There are a number of military bases that spring up or continue operation across the state. One of them is the one behind me, Camp Toccoa at Currahee Mountain. This location would be a spot where the paratroopers were trained. Many divisions of paratroopers were trained to fight and parachute out of planes and fight for the Allies and lead them to victory. Camp Toccoa began as a New Deal program camp in the 1930s, but in 1942, 5,000 men arrived at Currahee Mountain outside of Toccoa, Georgia, for training of a new type of soldier, a paratrooper. These paratroopers would see action in some of the most famous battles of World War II, such as D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge. Camp Toccoa and the paratroopers would be in the HBO series Band of Brothers, which depicted their journey from training in the camp to the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. Today you can visit the remnants of the camp. You can see the C-47 plane that they would jump out of into the heat of battle, the barracks where they stayed in, and the regiment headquarters, which is the only original building. You can also do the famous hike 3 miles up, 3 miles down to the top of Currahee Mountain. This would be the hike that would train the soldiers for the rigors of battle. We are going to leave this story of Camp Toccoa and talk about how military camps impacted Georgia during the war and long term. The purpose of military camps in Georgia was to train the troops, build military weapons, and house POWs, prisoners of war. Camp Toccoa would train the paratroopers, Camp Benning would train the infantry, Robbins Field and Macon employed 13,000 civilians, University of Georgia's Naval School trained 2,000 combat pilots, and Camp Gordon in Augusta trained enlisted men for battlefields. The long-term impact of these military bases would be jobs at the bases and possible tourist opportunities like Camp Toccoa at Currahee Mountain. I am at the top of Currahee Mountain. 3 miles below is where the airborne divisions, the paratroopers, would begin their training, and the famous quote, 3 miles up, 3 miles down, would be a 3-mile hike up the mountain to the top of Currahee Mountain, and then 3 miles down back to Camp Toccoa. So this is Jim Wright once again on location, talking about military bases at Camp Toccoa. Have a wonderful day. Bye. After doing a lot of research to present Georgia on Location military bases, I learned a lot more about the paratrooper who dropped into Normandy on D-Day, which was June 6, 1944. I had envisioned, you're jumping out of an airplane and, you're taking enemy fire and there's no protection for you because you're hanging on a parachute, all right, and you're letting gravity guide you down to the earth. But to see it is amazing. It moved me on such a level, and such respect for these men and courage and all that stuff that they fought for. And just think about that. You're flying in the C-47 and you get to the enemy hot zone and anti-aircraft fire is firing all around you, and maybe you were lucky your plane doesn't get shot down and you get to jump out of the plane. But it's not over there. You are waiting for your parachute to touch ground. All the while, machine gun fire, anti-aircraft fire is going off around you. Once you land on the ground, you are in Axis-controlled France, and you're behind enemy lines, and you have a mission to do, and you got to take out certain positions while behind enemy lines with very little support. So I just wanted to take this moment and reflect on the grandeur of that and how amazing that was. And we'll talk more about D-Day and all that stuff, but just those events and the courage it took and the valor and all that stuff needs to be remembered and talked about. See y'all later.